So thank you for coming out. Again, my name is Bianchi-Rossi. I have a long connection with the school, so a lot of new faces, people who probably don't go back that far, but I go back. I worked at the school starting in 2001, and I made my way all the way through kind of a windy road on up to the Dean of Students. And while I was the Dean of Students, I went back to school. I went back to Bethel to get my master's in counseling and transitioned out and have been a therapist ever since. But because of the connection that I have with the school, I felt like it's really important for me to continue to offer whatever might be valuable back to the school. Both of my children went to the school for 15 years each, from 3-year-old through graduation. My husband works at the school, and so we're really invested and really believe deeply in Maranatha and how beautiful the school is. So here I am, and Deb had prayed for my wisdom. My prayer is that it's not my wisdom. My prayer is that I'm just the mouthpiece. So I'm going to come here talking to you today. When I saw the topic, I was kind of chuckling because the topic that I was given to talk about today is called Education and Home Collaboration, and I immediately thought you gave this to the wrong VR. Because that's my husband's thing. He's really good at that. He's really good at communication. If anybody has ever sent me an email or has left me a voicemail, you can understand my communication skills. I would call that my growth edge, for sure. And so I am gonna take this topic from the lens of where I was trained, which is mental health, which is the whole point why I'm here. I see that what I have to offer as being understanding mental health, both from the kids or adolescent standpoint, but also from the parent standpoint. And how can I help you to look at this from a different lens or an added lens to help you to be the best parent that you know how to be for your kids? And that's the whole point of why we're here, right? Is we want to support our kids to have the best experience. So in talking about education and home collaboration, I mean, the first thing that I thought was, okay, what does this mean for mental health? Like, you know, how can I put this in the lens of mental health? And so to collaborate from home to school, we're talking about something called systems. And so I want to give you just a little bit of background. So as a therapist, when I sit down with a new client, I am trying to look at this client from a couple of different lenses. I'm gathering a ton of information. I'm trying to understand what their goal for being there is. And there's two big lenses that I am looking at what they bring to the table. The first one is the individual lens. So what lies within them? That's everything from their emotions, you know, the ways their emotions are upsetting them, to the beliefs that they have, the thoughts that they have, behaviors that they do, right? So from an individual standpoint. The other lens that I look at a client and gather information from is from a systems lens. And that lens has everything to do with, it starts with the family of origin system. And then it moves to different systems. So how has your participation in a system impacted you, who you are, for the positive or for the negative, right? And so there's a ton of data that I gather from a systems perspective. And a system is simply, you know, a group of people that we participate with life in. And every one of us has a complex group of systems that we operate in and through all the time. All humans do it. It's kind of like the biggest Venn diagram in the world, right? Every one of our systems, we're coming out of these systems. So why does this matter in this conversation? Because the primary system that we operate out of is our family of origin. The primary system where we as little kids and as growing into young adults get our information and our modeling from is the family of origin. And so therein lies the parent piece of it, right? So education and home collaboration has everything to do with you as a parent and what that primary system looks like. The way that we parent, the way that we engage with our children, and the way that we engage with other systems, and that can be many, many things. That can be a peer group, that can be a sports group, that can be a work environment, and certainly that is the school environment, which is what we're talking about. Your child's lens on those other systems is primarily impacted by you, by us. And we don't so much teach our children about what that lens is as that we leak on them. We're modeling it. What we do is what we teach, right? So being really, really thoughtful of that and thinking of it from the lens of what is me and the system that I'm in charge of for my children, modeling for my children, and then what do I do in behind that, coming in to actually talk about that modeling. First of all, is my modeling congruent? This is the thing I hear most of all from my teenagers when I meet with teenagers, is the incongruence of their primary system and other systems. So what does that mean? That means that their parents say one thing and do another, right? And then this creates, I hear a lot of the word hypocrisy. I hear that happening, or that word coming out of some teenagers. And I know parents, we don't intend on doing that. Of course not, right? We want to be the best that we can be. But if we're not taking a good hard look at what am I modeling, then I run the risk of hypocrisy, right? And I create a challenging dynamic for my adolescents. So let me take a step back. One of my mentors, when I came into the mental health world, he used to do the role that I did here. His name is Jim Peasley. He's amazing. So, but he told me, think about parenting or the original family system, family of origin, as the island upon which your children live. And that is regardless of whether or not that you're married, that you're living in the same home, that you're divorced, that you are estranged, that you are friends, whatever the case may be. The two biological parents create the island upon which your children live. And if that island is incongruent, your children have a very rocky support system, and that is a really difficult thing for children to do. So it really helps us then to focus on, okay, what am I offering to my kids? The primary system, the family, supports and encourages cooperating in other systems with schools. So if my communication to my child, if the way that I engage with school communication, school events and activities, school, like the mission statement of the school, those types of things, the way I engage with that behind closed doors in front of my child is what leaks onto my child. So if I, behind closed doors, am sniping about the school, and it's not in a way that is collaborative or problem solving, then my child, then when I go out into public and I say how great the school is, or I am doing some sort of supportive thing, my kid's like, well, what are you talking about? You were just sniping about it behind closed doors. And so that's not to say that we don't have things that we would like to improve about the school or the teachers or the classroom environment or whatever the case may be. That's legitimate, but how do we handle that? How do we present that? And that's a really, really important one. If you've heard me speak before, you've probably heard the tennis analogy. And that's one that I think about when I'm thinking about how do we as parents position ourselves in situations like this. So the tennis analogy goes like this. If I am coming into communication with a different system or a different person, I'm either going to, and especially if I have an opposite view, or if I have something that I think needs to be improved. If I come into that dynamic mentally, if I come into it like a tennis game where I am looking at the other party as the opponent, then what I've come into is an automatically conflictual situation or a high potential of conflict, right? So if I'm coming into it thinking that person is the opponent or the person that I'm fighting against, I want to win, then that is already setting up failure. And so to keep with the tennis analogy, I'll often tell people, when you're coming into a situation and you're modeling that situation, let's say for the child there's a problem in the, with the way recesses run or something, that we position it as, how can we join with your teacher to tackle the problem of the recess situation? So to keep with the tennis analogy, we would put the problem over on the other side of the net. And then we figure out, how do we become a doubles partner with your teacher? How do we support your teacher? How do we communicate well so that when your teacher goes to the net, we can fall back and catch the things behind, right? So that we are working in tandem, believing the best about what the school and the teacher is doing, whatever the topic may be, and we have kept the problem as the opponent, as the partnered topic that we are gonna tackle together. When a child is modeled that type of tackling of problems, everything, including, beyond even education in school, this will be taken into other systemic dynamics. So in their work situation, they won't see their boss as the enemy. They will approach it the way that you have modeled for them to approach it. And I really liked the tennis analogy. It keeps it simple. How do I be a doubles partner with this person? And what actually is on the other side of the net, right? Is it the person or is it the problem? And so this is a really great way that we can, as parents, encourage collaboration with the school, regardless of the topic, and regardless of whether or not you agree with the way that it's being handled. Actually, if you don't agree the way it's being handled, it's even more powerful that you can join together to tackle the problem. Research shows that parent involvement and collaboration with schools helps children perform better academically. That's just everywhere. You can Google that and find it repeated in multiple different areas. My bigger concern with this topic, of course, academic performance is very, very important. But my bigger concern with this topic is us as a parent who create congruence. We create a feeling of what happens at home and is modeled at home, I can take and model in other situations in my life. Right? So as a little kid, my little kids, I am telling them how to do this. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna figure out how Miss X is doing things, and then we're gonna bring her solutions. We're gonna let her know what is the problem. We're telling them. And then again, if you've ever heard me talk, what do we do with our adolescents? We ask, don't tell, right? So with my adolescent then, I am going to say, hey, tell me about what the problem is. How do you feel about it? I'm gonna validate how they feel. Right? Your frustration is valid. What do you think the problem is? What are some solutions? Let's brainstorm some solutions. What do you think about meeting with X person to brainstorm some solutions? So now what I'm doing with my adolescent is I'm showing them that your emotions matter, your frustration with the problem matters, and I am your partner. I am the island upon which you live. I am supportive, and I'm going to help you collaborate to reach a solution that is not creating more problems, right? Does that make sense? So then we're launching our adolescents with this feeling, with this recognition of this is how we problem solve in a very, very productive and healthy way. But we are also launching our adolescents with a feeling of, oh, I can reach in here. I don't have to ask somebody out here to help me with solutions. I can come up with some. I can gather it from the wisdom that I have within myself. This is how we create non-dependent kids. We create kids who are dependent upon the wisdom that we teach all the time, that the Holy Spirit is alive and well in each one of us, and if we're just quiet enough, that we can hear direction, right? And so these are some of the ways that we can help as parents to create collaboration. I say often, we leak all over our kids. I think Brian, or Mr. Sullivan used to say it, things are caught more than taught, right? And so that's another one that I really wanted to highlight when we're talking about this, because even as adults, we have growth edges, right? We always have growth edges. And so if this is something as a parent that you feel like, okay, I don't do this very well, and depending on the age of your child, if your child is a little bit older, be open with that. Be humble with that. It's like, this one's tough for me. So I'm going to come into this knowing I haven't done it very well in the past, and this is what I'm trying to do. And let's work together to create ways to collaborate with the school for success for everybody. That type of humility also is modeling, leaking on your kids, the ability to have an area in their life that they're not good at. And they haven't done it very well in the past. And you know what? That's okay. And I can be open and humble about that. And there is nothing like authenticity. This is the opposite of the hypocrisy that I was talking about earlier. And it's okay if you don't do it well. But if you're open about it and you're learning and growing, especially with your older kids, if you're doing that together, this is the most powerful training that I've seen. I don't see kids, this is resilience training. This is what it means to be a resilient young person and into adulthood. I can handle not being good at something. I can handle falling on my face because my parents did it right in front of me. And they modeled how do we handle that. So I'm getting a little bit rabbit traily here, but so systems and how we leak on kids. Okay, normalizing and supporting, 10 things. So I found this really cool list. I'm going a little long, sorry. Let me just go over one or two of these items on the list because I thought they were really cool reminders to us as parents. 10 things teachers need from parents. The first one is normalize and support challenges that come from learning. This is a huge one, right? How can I collaborate? Education and home collaboration. From the home front, I can help my child to learn how to manage the difficulty, the discomfort of learning. Everything that teachers do here is creating discomfort for your kids. It's their job, right? Everything that the coach that your kid's athletic team does for your kids creates discomfort. It's their job. And if they're not creating discomfort, they're not doing a very good job, right? It's the whole point of this. And so as parents, what's our relationship with discomfort? This is kind of a little joke that me and my older kids have when they ask me, I do physical stuff, I do training stuff. And so if I'm going out for a run, they're like, how long are you running today, Mom? Or what are you doing today, Mom? Are you biking, you running, what are you doing? And sometimes I'll say, I am working on my relationship with discomfort today. That's what I'm doing. So, and there's lots of ways to do that, but how I engage with that really sets the tone for them. How am I uncomfortable? Why am I uncomfortable? Is it good discomfort? Is it growth discomfort? Or is it frustration discomfort? And then what do I do with that? How do I ventilate that? How do I get support for that? And how do I make change in a healthy way that doesn't create conflict? The second one that I wanted to that I wanted to mention on that list was help your child to adapt. Frustration tolerance is one of the things that I see the absence of in most kids and adolescents that come through my office. I don't see many kids anymore, but adolescents that come through my office. The inability to tolerate frustration, to manage it in a way that is healthy, and then to problem solve it, to get to the bottom. Where's this frustration coming from? What can I do to solve and manage it? And again, this can come from a parent or a modeled set of parents that don't manage frustration well on the home front. And so getting familiar with the way that you manage frustration, accepting the fact that you're leaking all over your children, and doing something about it, right? That's the humility part of it, right? This is my growth edge. How can we do this a little bit better? But helping our children to manage frustration is a gift that you give them for the rest of their life. And so I wanted to touch on that too, because remember, we are sending them into a building every single day where they are going to be uncomfortable. They're supposed to be. And if they don't know how to manage discomfort, the teachers have to take on the lion's share of that job, and that keeps them from doing what they are trained and brought into the building to do, right? So those are just a few things. I got a whole other list, but I know I'm going way over, so I'll wrap it up here. I just wanted to let you guys know too, I'm gonna be here, I think 4 more times this year. I think I'm on the schedule 4 more times this year. And I'm very interested in the topics that you guys wanna hear about. I mean, very interested. And so if you can somehow get those ideas to either Deb or Lissa Floten or Corey or anybody here that can get them to me, that would be fantastic, because I really want to be speaking to what's important to you guys and the questions that you guys have. And then the other thing is I'm dragging my kid in here. So it's really, really cool that I have a daughter. My oldest daughter is a therapist as well. She graduated from the same school I went to, and she works more with children and adolescents. And so dragging her in here to speak more to the younger crowd and to get a freshly trained therapist straight out of Bethel to speak to some of the topics that maybe I'm a little more rusty on. And so I'm excited about that part too. So if you have the younger kids stuff, aim that at her. So thank you so much.